of man's first disobedience, and the fruit of that forbidden tree whose mortal taste brought death into the world and all our woe, with loss of Eden, till one greater man restore us and regain the blissful seat. Sing heavenly news, that on the secret top of Oreb or of Sinai didst inspire that shepherd who first taught the chosen seed. In the beginning how the heavens and earth rose out of chaos. For if Zion hill delight thee more, and Siloa's brook that flowed fast by the oracle of God, I thence invoke thy aid to my adventurous song, that with no middle flight intends to soar above the Ionian mount, while it pursues things unattempted yet in prose or rhyme. And chiefly thou, O Spirit, that dost prefer before all temples the upright heart and pure, instruct me, for thou knowest. Thou from the first wast present, and with mighty wings outspread, dove-like satest brooding on the vast abyss, and madest it pregnant. What in me is dark, illumine. What is low, raise and support, that to the height of this great argument I may assert eternal providence, and justify the ways of God to men.
Say first, for heaven hides nothing from thy view, nor the deep tract of hell. Say first, what cause moved our grandparents in that happy state, favoured of heaven so highly, to fall off from their Creator, and transgress his will, for one restraint, lords of the world besides. Who first seduced them to that foul riddle? The infernal serpent. He it was whose guile, stirred up with envy and revenge, deceived the mother of mankind. What time his pride had cast him out from heaven, with all his host of rebel angels, by whose aid aspiring to set himself in glory above his peers, he trusted to have equalled the Most High, if he opposed, and with ambitious aim, against the throne and monarchy of God, raised impious war in heaven, and battle proud with vain attempt. Him the almighty power hurled headlong, flaming from the ethereal sky, with hideous ruin and combustion, down to bottomless perdition, there to dwell in adamantine chains and penal fire, who durst defy the omnipotent to arms.
9 times the space that measures day and night to mortal men, he with his horrid crew lay vanquished, rolling in the fiery gulf, confounded though immortal. But his doom reserved him to more wrath, for now the thought both of lost happiness and lasting pain torments him. Round he throws his baleful eyes, that witnessed huge affliction and dismay, mixed with obdurate pride and steadfast hate. At once, as far as angels can, he views the dismal situation, waste and wild, a dungeon horrible, on all sides round as one great furnace flamed, yet from those flames no light, but rather darkness visible, served only to discover sights of woe, regions of sorrow, doleful shades where peace and rest can never dwell. Hope never comes that comes to all, but torture without end still urges, and the fiery deluge, fed with ever-burning sulphur unconsumed. Such place eternal justice had prepared for those rebellious. Here their prison ordained in utter darkness, and their portion set as far removed from God and light of heaven as from the center thrice to the utmost pole. Oh, how unlike the place from whence they fell. There the companions of his fall, o'erwhelmed with floods and whirlwinds of tempestuous fire, he soon discerns. And weltering by his side, one next himself in power, and next in crime, long after known in Palestine, and named Beelzebub, to whom the archenemy, and thence in heaven called Satan, with bold words breaking the horrid silence, thus began.
If thou beest he, but oh, how fallen, how changed from him who in the happy realms of light, clothed with transcendent brightness, didst outshine millions though bright. If he, whom mutual league, united thoughts and counsels, equal hope and hazard in the glorious enterprise, joined with me once, now misery hath joined in equal ruin. Into what pit thou seest, from what height fallen, so much the stronger proved he with his thunder. Until then who knew the force of those dire arms. Yet not for those, nor what the potent victor in his rage can else inflict, do I repent, or change, though changed in outward lustre. That fixed mind and high disdain from sense of injured merit, that with the mightiest raised me to contend, and to the fierce contention brought along innumerable force of spirits armed, that durst dislike his reign, and me preferring his utmost power with adverse power opposed in dubious battle on the plains of heaven, and shook his throne. What though the field be lost? All is not lost. The unconquerable will and study of revenge, immortal hate, and courage never to submit or yield, and what is else not to be overcome. That glory never shall his wrath or might extort from me. To bow and sue for grace with suppliant knee, and deify his power, who from the terror of this arm so late doubted his empire, that were low indeed. That were an ignominy and shame beneath this downfall. Since by fate, the strength of gods, and this imperial substance cannot fail. Since through experience of this great event, in arms not worse, in foresight much advanced, we may with more successful hope resolve to wage by force or guile eternal war, irreconcilable to our grand foe, who now triumphs, and in the excess of joy, sole reigning, holds the tyranny of heaven.
O Prince, O chief of many throned powers, that led the embattled seraphim to war under thy conduct, and in dreadful deeds, fearless, endangered heaven's perpetual king, and put to proof his high supremacy, whether upheld by strength or chance or fate. Too well I see and rue the dire event, that with sad overthrow and foul defeat hath lost us heaven, and all this mighty host in horrible destruction laid thus low. As far as gods and heavenly essences can perish, for the mind and spirit remains invincible, and vigor soon returns, though all our glory extinct, and happy state here swallowed up in endless misery. But what if he, our conqueror, whom I now of force believe almighty, since no less than such could have o'erpowered such force as ours, have left at this our spirit and strength entire, strongly to suffer and support our pains, that we may so suffice his vengeful ire, or do him mightier service as his thralls by right of war, whate'er his business be, here in the heart of hell to work in fire, or do his errands in the gloomy deep. What can it then avail, though yet we feel strength undiminished or eternal being, to undergo eternal punishment?
Fallen cherub, to be weak is miserable, doing or suffering. But of this be sure, to do aught good never will be our task, but ever to do ill our sole delight, as being the contrary to his high will, whom we resist. If then his providence out of our evil seek to bring forth good, our labour must be to pervert that end, and out of good still to find means of evil, which oftentimes may succeed, so as perhaps shall grieve him, if I fail not, and disturb his inmost counsels from their destined end. But see, the angry victor hath recalled his ministers of vengeance and pursuit back to the gates of heaven. The sulphurous hail, shot after us in storm, o'erblown hath laid the fiery surge, that from the precipice of heaven received us falling. And the thunder, winged with red lightning and impetuous rage, perhaps hath spent his shafts, and ceases now to bellow through the vast and boundless deep. Let us not slip the occasion, whether scorn or satiate fury yield it from our foe. Seest thou yon dreary plain, forlorn and wild, the seat of desolation, void of light, save what the glimmering of these livid flames casts, pale and dreadful? Thither let us tend from off the tossing of these fiery waves. There rest, if any rest can harbour there, and reassembling our afflicted powers, consult how we may henceforth most offend our enemy, our own loss how repair, how overcome this dire calamity, what reinforcement we may gain from hope, if not, what resolution from despair.
Thus Satan talking to his nearest mate, with head uplift above the wave and eyes that sparkling blazed. His other parts besides, prone on the flood, extended long and large, lay floating many a rood, in bulk as huge as whom the fables name of monstrous size, Titanian, or earth-born that warred on Jove, Briareos or Typhon, whom the den by ancient Tarsus held, or that sea-beast Leviathan, which God of all his works created hugest that swim the ocean stream. Him, hapless slumbering on the Norway foam, the pilot of some small night-founded skiff, deeming some island off, does seamen tell, with fixed anchor in his scaly rind, moors by his side under the lee, while night invests the sea, and wished morn delays. So stretched out huge in length the arch-fiend lay, chained on the burning lake, nor ever thence had risen nor heaved his head, but that the will and high permission of all ruling heaven left him at large to his own dark designs, that with reiterated crimes he might heap on himself damnation, while he sought evil to others, and enraged might see how all his malice served but to bring forth infinite goodness, grace, and mercy shown on man by him seduced, but on himself treble confusion, wrath, and vengeance poured.
Forthwith, upright he rears from off the pool his mighty stature. On each hand the flames, driven backward, slope their pointing spires, and rolled in billows, leave in the midst a horrid veil. Then with expanded wings he steers his flight aloft, incumbent on the dusky air that felt unusual weight, till on dry land he lights, if it were land that ever burned with solid as the lake with liquid fire, and such appeared in hue. As when the force of subterranean wind transports a hill torn from Pelorus, or the shattered side of thundering Etna, whose combustible and fueled entrails, thence conceiving fire, sublimed with mineral fury, aid the winds, and leave a singed bottom, all involved with stench and smoke. Such resting found the soul of unblessed feet.
Him followed his next mate, both glorying to escape the Stygian flood as gods, and by their own recovered strength, not by the sufferance of supernal power.
Is this the region? This the soil? The clime? This the seat that we must change for heaven? This mournful gloom for that celestial light? Be it so, since he who now is sovereign can dispose and bid what shall be right. Farthest from him is best, whom reason hath equalled, force hath made supreme above his equals. Farewell, happy fields, where joy forever dwells. Hail, horrors! Hail, infernal world! And thou, profoundest hell, receive thy new possessor, one who brings a mind not to be changed by place or time. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. What matter where, if I be still the same, and what I should be, all but less than he whom thunder hath made greater? Here at least we shall be free. The Almighty hath not built here for his envy, will not drive us hence. Here we may reign secure, and in my choice to reign is worth ambition, though in hell. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. But wherefore let we then our faithful friends, the associates and co-partners of our loss, lie thus astonished on the oblivious pool, and call them not to share with us their part in this unhappy mansion. Or once more, with rallied arms, to try what may be yet regained in heaven, or what more lost in hell.
Leader of those armies bright, which but the omnipotent none could have foiled, if once they hear that voice, their liveliest pledge of hope in fears and dangers, heard so oft in worst extremes, and on the perilous edge of battle when it raged, in all assaults their surest signal. They will soon resume new courage and revive, though now they lie grovelling and prostrate on yon lake of fire, as we awhile, astounded and amazed. No wonder forms such a pernicious height.
He scarce had ceased when the superior fiend was moving toward the shore. His ponderous shield, ethereal temper, massy, large and round, behind him cast. The broad circumference hung on his shoulders like the moon, whose orb through optic glass the Tuscan artist views at evening from the top of Fesole, or in Valdarno, to descry new lands, rivers or mountains in her spotty globe. His spear, to equal which the tallest pine, hewn on Norwegian hills to be the mast of some great amiral, were but a wand he walked with to support uneasy steps over the burning marl. Not like those steps on heaven's azure. And the torrid climb smote on him sore besides, vaulted with fire.
Nathless he so endured, till on the beach of that inflamed sea he stood and called his legions. Angel forms who lay entranced, thick as autumnal leaves that strew the brooks in Vallombrosa, where the Etrurian shades high overarched embower. Or scattered sedge afloat, when with fierce winds Orion armed hath vexed the Red Sea coast, whose waves o'erthrew Busaris and his Memphian chivalry, while with perfidious hatred they pursued the sojourners of Goshen, who beheld from the safe shore their floating carcasses and broken chariot wheels, so thick bestrewn, abject and lost ladies, covering the flood, under amazement of their hideous change. He called so loud that all the hollow deep of hell resounded.
Princes! Potentates! Warriors! The flower of heaven, once yours, now lost! If such astonishment as this can seize eternal spirits? Or had ye chosen this place after the toil of battle, to repose your wearied virtue for the ease you find to slumber here, as in the vales of heaven? Or in this abject posture have ye sworn to adore the conqueror, who now beholds cherub and seraph rolling in the flood with scattered arms and ensigns, till anon his swift pursuers from heaven gates discern the advantage, and descending tread us down thus drooping, or with linked thunderbolts transfix us to the bottom of this gulf? Awake! Arise! Or be forever fallen!
They heard and were abashed, and up they sprung upon the wing, as when men wont to watch on duty, sleeping found by whom they dread, rouse and bestir themselves ere well awake. Nor did they not perceive the evil plight in which they were, or the fierce pains not feel. Yet to their general's voice they soon obeyed innumerable, as when the potent roar of Amram's son in Egypt's evil day waved round the coast up called a pitchy cloud of locusts, warping on the eastern wind, that o'er the realm of impious Pharaoh hung like night, and darkened all the land of Nile. So numberless were those bad angels seen, hovering on wing under the cope of hell, twixt upper, nether, and surrounding fires, till, as a signal given, the uplifted spear of their great Sultan waving to direct their course, in even balance down they light on the firm brimstone, and fill all the plain. A multitude, like which the populous north poured never from her frozen loins to pass Rhine or the Danor, when her barbarous sons came like a deluge on the south and spread beneath Gibraltar to the Libyan sands. Forthwith, from every squadron and each band, the heads and leaders thither haste where stood their great commander, godlike shapes and forms excelling human, princely dignities and powers that erst in heaven sat on thrones, though of their names in heavenly records now be no memorial, blotted out and razed by their rebellion from the books of life. That is as far as we shall read in Book 1. The principal reason for giving this reading, in which we are attempting to give you an idea of the shape of the whole poem, is that Paradise Lost is one of the greatest poems ever written, and is perhaps too little read today outside the university. From the 17th century until the early part of this century, the single greatest influence on English poetry was Milton. His influence was in fact far greater than Shakespeare's, and one simply cannot understand the English poetic tradition unless one has read Milton. But it wasn't only poets who were fascinated by Milton. Ordinary people too read him, and read him with enjoyment. Throughout the 18th century in particular, there was a cult of Milton, and between 1705 and 1800, over 100 editions of Paradise Lost were published. During the same time, only 50 editions of Shakespeare's plays were published. In nonconformist households in particular, you'd be almost certain to find 3 books: the Bible, John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, and Paradise Lost. I make this point because one of the results of the rise of the academy and mass education has paradoxically been to cut us off from the works of the past. We no longer read them for enjoyment. We read them to pass exams or to do scholarly research. And we tend to suppose that this was always the case when it simply wasn't. But to put it vulgarly, no poem could have had such an extraordinary impact as Paradise Lost if it were not, first of all, an immensely good read. And Paradise Lost is hugely dramatic, exciting, and moving. But let me tell you a little about Milton himself. He was born in London in 1608. His father was a scrivener, a kind of lawyer. And his father was also an accomplished musician, an amateur one. And some of his compositions were published in collections, together with compositions by people like Thomas Morley. The young John was educated at St. Paul's School and then went on to Christ's College, Cambridge. He was an excellent scholar, and his especial strength was languages. He learnt Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, and he also learnt Italian from the family of his boyhood friend, Charles Diodati. The Diodatis were an Italian family who had settled in London. The bulk of Milton's poetry before Paradise Lost was in fact written in Latin. And he also wrote a number of sonnets in Italian when he went in 1638 to Italy, where he met many famous men, including Manso, who was Tasso's patron, and Galileo, who is mentioned twice in Paradise Lost. He is the Tuscan artist with the optic glass mentioned in the description of Satan moving towards the shore that Adam has just read. Milton had originally intended to join the church, but decided against it, partly because he disliked the autocratic activities of Archbishop Laud. In those days you could be sentenced to have your ears cut off, or worse, for merely venturing to criticize the way the church was run. Another reason for not joining the church was that he realized he wanted to be a poet. When the Civil War broke out, Milton joined the cause of Parliament and wrote numerous polemics, advocating, among other things, the lifting of censorship. Eventually, he was appointed Cromwell's Latin secretary and wrote a number of defences of the Commonwealth, including a defence of the execution of King Charles I. All this cost him his sight. It is worth remembering that Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, and Samson Agonistes were all dictated by a man who was completely blind. So it was not surprising that when the Restoration took place, Milton's name was on the list of those who should be punished as enemies of the crown. Fortunately, he had influential friends like Andrew Marvell, the poet, who was also MP for Hull, and these friends managed to save him. Thereafter, he lived a retired life, studying and writing his greatest works. He died in 1674. You sometimes hear it said that Milton's grand style is monotonous. I hope we have disabused you of that already. His verses usually are said to be monotonous in comparison with the fluidity of Shakespeare's late blank verse, which in a play like Lear becomes a kind of rhythmic prose that breaks suddenly into short passages of great poetic intensity. But obviously, a long poem is not the same thing as a drama, and you have to maintain a far more disciplined way of writing if the whole thing isn't going to fall apart. The beauty and greatness of Milton's verse lies in the balance he keeps between discipline and freedom. No poem had ever used enjambment, running over from one line to the next, so boldly before him. But at the same time, he always lets the line reassert itself, and never lets the verse fall into arbitrary chopped-up prose, which is the danger if you use enjambment too much. And what doesn't he pour into the mould of his blank verse? There are Satan's speeches, the poet's invocations, hymns, the descriptions of Eden, the language of courtly love with which Satan tempts Eve, the various conversations between Adam and Eve. There is a huge variety within this grand style. The more one knows about Paradise Lost, the more one becomes aware of the extraordinary complexity of its construction. It is, in fact, a great dance that mimics the dance that is the world and history. In Book 5, Raphael tells Adam, describing heaven, "That day, as other solemn days, they spent in song and dance about the sacred hill. Mystical dance, which yonder starry sphere of planets and affixed in all her wheels resembles nearest. Mazes intricate, eccentric, intervolved, yet regular than most, when most irregular they seem." And that is what human history is, an intricate maze, eccentric, intervolved, and irregular for those involved in it. But underlying it and running through it is God's order, and at the end of history, God shall be all in all, as Adam learns at the end of the poem. And again, the whole of Paradise Lost is a kind of echo chamber. Certain words and phrases recur again and again. Fall, lose, lost, fruit, fruitless, delight, virtue, envy, love, high, height, high over arch, joy, wonder, maze, amazed, wanton, error, erroneous. As does the image of hands in connection with Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve are handed, or hand in hand, or Eve withdraws her hand from Adam's before the fall, when she decides she wants to be alone, or Adam seizes Eve's hand. And these words and phrases recur in different contexts, in the context of heaven, of hell, of the unfallen world or the fallen world, and the context modifies or changes their meaning. So the whole poem is a great web of ironies to which we have to be sensitive if we are to appreciate it fully. But the central theme of the poem is that of choice. History is, in fact, subsumed under the archetypal image of choice. We are all Adams and we are all Eves, and we are all faced throughout our lives with a choice between doing good and doing evil. Whether or not one is a Christian, I don't think one can deny profundity to this view of life. And even in a secular age such as ours, I think it has a great deal of meaning. Finally, Milton is, I think, the first poet in the European tradition to treat seriously of the love between man and wife. If you cast your mind back to the time of Shakespeare, poets in those times wrote mostly about love affairs, or about the trials and tribulations a young couple had to go through in order to get married. And once the young couple has finally, after great difficulty, managed to get married, the play or the poem ends. And that's that. It's as if marriage were some kind of eternal and unchanging state, Once you've got married, you have no more history. But Adam and Eve have furious arguments and then forgive each other. Their marriage has a history. And I think any married couple will recognize themselves in Milton's account of the relationship between Adam and Eve.
Well, in books 1 and 2 of Paradise Lost, Milton describes the fall of Satan and his rebel angels after their great battle against God. And they have fallen into hell. And there they build a great palace, which they name Pandemonium, which means all demons. And in this palace, their first act is to hold a debate in which they discuss whether they will accept the state in which they now find themselves, whether they will try once again by force of arms to regain their state in heaven, or whether they will revenge themselves against God in some more subtle and devious manner. And they have heard that God has created a new world, and in this new world he has placed a new creation, man and woman. And the devils wonder whether they might not revenge themselves upon God by perverting, by corrupting this new creation. And Satan, who is the great hero figure of the first part of the poem, to such an extent that the English poet William Blake remarked that Milton was of the devil's party without knowing. Satan undertakes the extraordinarily difficult and dangerous adventure of breaking out of hell, of flying across chaos, and of entering the new world to investigate the new creation and to see whether he can found his revenge on its perversion. Well, now, in Book 3 of Paradise Lost, Milton changes the scene completely and shows us heaven. And he uses this opportunity to re-enter the poem himself and to invoke the spirit of his inspiration, which in his case is the Holy Spirit. And Milton conceives of heaven in terms of light. It is a place of great brightness, of dazzling light. Hell, as you will have heard, was a place where there was no light, but rather darkness visible. But heaven is the exact opposite of this. And it's, of course, a touching and moving irony to remember, as Tim has just reminded us, that Milton was blind, and so he was conceiving heaven in terms that he could not himself experience through his senses, but which he could only imagine. And this invocation to the Holy Spirit and to light is followed by a speech by God, which is in many ways a key to the whole poem of Paradise Lost, because in this speech God puts forward this central argument of choice. Does Adam fall through his own will? Could he have avoided falling? Or was he predestined to fall? Is it the fate of humanity that they must fall and that this fate cannot be avoided? This is a theme that, as Tim mentioned, runs through the whole poem and in some ways binds it together. But it is in this speech of God's in Book 3 that it is expressed most completely. So Book 3 of Paradise Lost begins with Milton's invocation to light.
Hail, holy light, offspring of heaven firstborn, or of the eternal, co-eternal being. May I express the unblamed, since God is light, and never but in unapproached light dwelt from eternity. Dwelt then in thee, bright effluence of bright essence in create? Or hear'st thou rather pure ethereal stream, whose fountain who shall tell? Before the sun, before the heavens thou wert, and at the voice of God, as with a mantle didst invest the rising world of waters, dark and deep, one from the void and formless infinite. Thee I revisit now with bolder wing, escaped the Stygian pool, though long detained in that obscure sojourn, while in my flight, through utter and through middle darkness borne, with other note than to the Orphean lyre, I sung of chaos and eternal night, taught by the heavenly muse to venture down the dark descent, and up to reascend, though hard and rare. Thee I revisit safe, and feel thy sovereign vital lamp, but thou revisit'st not these eyes that roll in vain to find thy piercing ray, and find no dawn. So thicket rocks serene have quenched their orbs, or dim suffusion veil. Yet not the more cease I to wander where the muses haunt clear spring, or shady grove, or sunny hill, smit with the love of sacred song. But chief these I am, and the flowery brooks beneath that wash thy hallowed feet and warbling flow, nightly I visit, nor sometimes forget those other two equalled with me in fate, so were I equalled with them in renown, blind Thamyris and blind Myonides, and Tiresias and Phineus, prophets old. Then feed on thoughts that voluntary move harmonious numbers, as the wakeful bird sings darkling, and in shadiest covert hid, tunes her nocturnal note. Thus with the year seasons return, but not to me returns day, or the sweet approach of even or morn, or sight of vernal bloom, or summer's rose, or flocks, or herds, or human face divine, but cloud instead, and ever-during dark surrounds me, from the cheerful ways of men cut off, and for the book of knowledge fair, presented with a universal blank of nature's works to me, expunged and raised, and wisdom at one entrance quite shut out. So much the rather thou, celestial light, shine inward, and the mind through all her powers irradiate. There plant eyes, all mist from thence, purge and disperse, that I may see and tell of things invisible to mortal sight.
Now have the Almighty Father, from above, from the pure empyrean where he sits, high-throned above all height, bent down his eye, his own works and their works at once to view. About him all the sanctities of heaven stood thick as stars, and from his sight received beatitude past utterance. On his right, the radiant image of his glory Son, his only Son.
On earth he first beheld our two first parents, yet the only two of mankind in the happy garden place, reaping immortal fruits of joy and love, uninterrupted joy, unrivaled love in blissful solitude. He then surveyed hell and the gulf between, and Satan there, coasting the wall of heaven on this side night in the dun air sublime, and ready now to stoop with wearied wings and willing feet on the bare outside of this world that seemed firm land embosomed without firmament, uncertain which in ocean or in air. Him God beholding from his prospect high, wherein past, present, future he beholds, thus to his only Son, foreseeing spake.
Only begotten Son, seest thou what rage transports our adversary, whom no bounds prescribe, no bars of hell, nor all the chains heaped on him there, nor yet the main abyss wide interrupt can hold, so bent he seems on desperate revenge, that shall redound upon his own rebellious head. And now, through all restraint broke loose, he wings his way not far off heaven, in the precincts of light, directly towards the new created world, and man there placed, with purpose to essay, if him by force he can destroy, or worse, by some false guile pervert, and shall pervert. For man will hearken to his glozing lies, and easily transgress the sole command, sole pledge of his obedience. So will fall he and his faithless progeny, whose fault, whose but his own. Ingrate, he had of me all he could have. I made him just and right, sufficient to have stood, though free to fall. Such I created all the ethereal powers and spirits, both them who stood and them who failed. Freely they stood who stood, and fell who fell. Not free, what proof could they have given sincere of true allegiance, constant faith or love, where only what they needs must do appeared, not what they would? What praise could they receive? What pleasure I from such obedience paid, when will and reason also is choice, useless and vain, of freedom both despoiled, made passive both, had served necessity, not me. They therefore, as to right belong, so were created, nor can justly accuse their maker, or their making, or their fate, as if predestination overruled their will, disposed by absolute decree or high foreknowledge. They themselves decreed their own revolt, not I. If I foreknew, foreknowledge had no influence on their thought, which had no less proved certain unforeknown. So without least impulse or shadow of fate, or aught by me immutably foreseen, they trespass, authors to themselves in all, both what they judge and what they choose. For so I formed them free, and free they must remain till they enthrall themselves. I else must change their nature, and revoke the high decree, unchangeable, eternal, which ordained their freedom. They themselves ordained their fall. The first sought by their own suggestion fell. Self-tempted, self-depraved. Man falls, deceived by the other first. Man therefore shall find grace, the other none. In mercy and justice both, through heaven and earth, so shall my glory excel. But mercy, first and last, shall brightest shine.
So Satan has finally reached the world. He arrives on Earth, and then he finds the Garden of Eden, which is set on top of a high hill, surrounded with thick woods. And he enters it, and by a fine stroke of irony we first see paradise, and before long Adam and Eve, with Satan there in the garden. Beneath him with new wonder now he views, to all delight of human sense exposed in narrow room, nature's whole wealth, yea more, a heaven on earth, for blissful paradise of God the garden was, by him in the east of Eden planted. Eden stretched a line from Aurum eastward to the royal towers of great Seleucia, built by Grecian kings, or where the sons of Eden long before dwelt in Thalassa.
In this pleasant soil, his far more pleasant garden God ordained. Out of the fertile ground he caused to grow all trees of noblest kind, for sight, smell, taste. And all amid them stood the tree of life, high eminent, blooming ambrosial fruit of vegetable gold. And next to life, our death, the tree of knowledge grew fast by. Knowledge of good bought dear by knowing ill.
Southward through Eden went a river large, nor changed his course, but through the shaggy hill passed underneath engulfed. For God had thrown that mountain as his garden mold, high raised upon the rapid current, which through veins of porous earth, with kindly thirst updrawn, rose a fresh fountain, and with many a rill watered the garden. Thence united fell down the steep glade, and met the nether flood, which from his darksome passage now appears, and now, divided into four main streams, runs diverse, wandering many a famous realm and country, whereof here needs no account.
But rather to tell how, if art could tell, how from that sapphire fount the crisped brooks, rolling on orient pearl and sands of gold, with mazy error under pendant shades ran nectar, visiting each plant, and fed flowers worthy of paradise, which not nice art in beds and curious knots, but nature, boon, poured forth profuse on hill and dale and plain, both where the morning sun first warmly smote the open field, and where the unpierced shade inbrowned the noontide boughs.
Thus was this place a happy rural seat of various hue, groves whose rich trees wept odorous gums and balm, others whose fruit, burnished with golden rind, hung amiable, Hesperian fables true, if true here only, and of delicious taste. Betwixt them lawns or level downs, and flocks grazing the tender herb were interposed, or palmy hillock, or the flowery lap of some irriguous valley spread her store. flowers of all hue, and without form arose.
Another side, umbrageous grots and caves of cool recess, o'er which the mantling vine lays forth her purple grape, and gently creeps luxuriant. Meanwhile, murmuring waters fall down the slope hills, dispersed or in a lake, that to the fringed bank with myrtle crowned her crystal mirror holes unite their streams. The birds their choir apply, airs, vernal airs, breathing the smell of field and grove, attune the trembling leaves, while universal Pan, knit with the graces and the hours in dance, led on the eternal spring.
Not that fair field of Enna, where Proserpine, gathering flowers, herself a fairer flower by gloomy Dis was gathered, which cost Ceres all that pain to seek her through the world. Nor that sweet grove of Daphne by Orontes, and the inspired Castilian spring, might with this paradise of Eden strive, nor that Nicean isle, girt with the river Triton, where old Cham, whom Gentiles Ammon call, and Libyan Jove, hid Amalthea and her florid son, young Bacchus, from his stepped in Rhea's eye. Nor where Bassin kings their issue guard, Mount Amara, though this by some supposed true paradise, under the Ethiop line by Nilus head, enclosed with shining rock, a whole day's journey high. But wide remote from this Assyrian garden, where the fiend saw undelighted all delight, all kind of living creatures, new to sight and strange.
Two of far nobler shape, erect and tall, godlike erect, with native honor clad, in naked majesty, seemed lords of all, and worthy seemed. For in their looks divine, the image of their glorious Maker shone. Truth, wisdom, sanctitude severe and pure, severe but in true filial freedom placed, whence true authority in men. Though both not equal, as their sex not equal seem. For contemplation he and valor form, for softness she, and sweet attractive grace. He for God only, she for God in him.
His fair large front and eye sublime declared absolute rule, and hyacinthine locks round from his parted forelock manly hung clustering, but not beneath his shoulders broad. She as a veil down to the slender waist, her unadorned golden tresses wore dishevelled, but in wanton ringlets waved, as the vine curls her tendrils, which implied subjection, but required with gentle sway, and by her yielded, by him best received, yielded with coy submission, modest pride, and sweet, reluctant, amorous delay.
Nor those mysterious parts were then concealed. Then was not guilty shame, dishonest shame of nature's works, honor dishonorable, sin bred. How have ye troubled all mankind with shows instead, mere shows of seeming pure, and banished from man's life his happiest life, simplicity and spotless innocence. So passed they naked on, nor shunned the sight of God or angel, for they thought no ill. So hand in hand they passed, the loveliest pair that ever since in love's embraces met. Adam, the goodliest man of men since born his sons, the fairest of her daughters. And so Satan has entered paradise and has decided that he will found his revenge on the temptation of Adam and Eve. God has seen Satan's journey and has understood his design, and he tries to defend Adam and Eve from Satan's wickedness. First, he banishes Satan from the garden, but Satan returns in the form of a mist. Then God sends his angel Raphael, and Raphael describes to Adam the great battle that has taken place in heaven, the fall of Satan, and explains to Adam, who is still in a state of complete innocence, why it is that he has an enemy in the world who wishes him harm. This description implies books 4 through 8 of Paradise. And in a few minutes' time, after we have had a short rest, we would like to read from book 9 of Paradise Lost, Milton's description of the central event of the poem, the temptation and the fall.
For now and since first break of dawn, the fiend, mere serpent in appearance, forth was come, and on his quest, where likeliest he might find the only two of mankind, but in them the whole included race his purposed prey. In bar and field he sought, where any tuft of grove or garden plot more pleasant lay, their tendance or plantation for delight. By fountain or by shady rivulet he sought them both, but wished his hap might find Eve separate. He wished, but not with hope of what so seldom chanced, when to his wish beyond his hope, Eve separate he spies, veiled in a cloud of fragrance where she stood half spied, so thick the roses bushing round about her glowed, oft stooping to support each flower of slender stalk, whose head, though gay carnation, purple azure, or specked with gold, hung drooping unsustained. Them she upstays gently with myrtle band, mindless the while herself, though fairest unsupported flower, from her best prop so far, and storm so nigh. Nearer he drew, and many a walk traversed of stateliest covert, cedar, pine, or palm, then voluble and bold, now hid, now seen among thick-woven arborets and flowers embroidered on each bank, the hand of Eve, spot more delicious than those gardens famed, or of renowned Alcinous, host of old Laertes' son, or that not mystic, where the sapient king held dalliance with his fair Egyptian spouse. Much he the place admired, but person more.
As one who long in populous city pent, where houses thick and sewers annoy the air, forth issuing on a summer's morn to breathe among the pleasant villages and farms adjoined, from each thing met conceives delight, the smell of grain, or tedded grass, or kine, or dairy, each rural sight, each rural sound. If chance with nymph-like step fair virgin pass, what pleasing seemed, for her now pleases more, she most, and in her look sums all delight. Such pleasure took the serpent to behold this flowery plant, the sweet recess of Eve, thus early, thus alone. Her heavenly form angelic, but more soft and feeble, her graceful innocence, her every air of gesture or least action, overawed his malice, and with rapine sweet bereaved his fierceness of the fierce intent it brought. That space the evil one abstracted stood from his own evil, and for the time remained stupidly good, of enmity disarmed, of guile, of hate, of envy, of revenge.
But the hot hell that always in him burns, though in mid-heaven, soon ended his delight, and tortures him no more, the more he sees of pleasures not for him ordained. Then soon fierce hate he recollects, and all his thoughts of mischief, gratulating, thus excites.
Thoughts, whither have ye led me? With what sweet compulsion thus transported to forget what hither brought us? Hate! Not love, nor hope of paradise for hell. Hope here to taste of pleasure, but all pleasure to destroy, save what is in destroying. Other joy to me is lost. Then let me not pass occasion which now smiles. Behold, alone, the woman, opportune to all things, her husband, for I view far round, not nigh, whose higher intellectual more I shun, and strength, of courage haughty, and of limb heroic built, though of terrestrial mould. Foe not informidable, exempt from wound, I not. So much hath hell debased, and pain enfeebled me to what I was in heaven. She fair, divinely fair, fit love for gods, not terrible, though terror be in love and beauty, not approached by stronger hate. Hate stronger, under show of love will fade, the way which to her ruin now I take.
So spake the enemy of mankind, enclosed in serpent, inmate bad, and toward eve addressed his way, not with indented wave, prone on the ground as since, but on his rear circular base of rising folds, that tarred fold above fold a surging maze, his head crested aloft, and carbuncle his eye, with burnished neck of verdant gold erect amidst his circling spires, that on the grass floated redundant. Pleasing was his shape and lovely, never since of serpent kind lovelier, not those that in Illyria changed Hermione and Cadmus, or the god in Epidaurus, nor to which transformed Ammonian Jove, or Capitoline was seen, he with Olympias, this with her who bore Scipio the height of Rome. With tract oblique at first, as one who sought access but feared to interrupt, sidelong he works his way, as when a ship by skilful steersman wrought, nigh river's mouth or foreland where the wind veers oft, as oft so steers and ships assail. So varied he, and of his tortuous train curled many a wanton wreath in sight of Eve to lure her eye. She busied, heard the sound of rustling leaves, but minded not, as used to such disport, before her through the field from every beast, more duteous at her call than at Circean call the herd disguised. She bolder now, uncalled before her stood, but as in gaze of mine, Oft he bowed his turret crest, and sleep enamelled neck, fawning, and licked the ground whereon she trod. His gentle, dumb expression turned at length the eye of Eve to mark his prey. He glad of her attention gained, with serpent tongue organic, or impulse of vocal air, his fraudulent temptation thus began.
Wonder not, sovereign mistress, if perhaps thou canst, who art sole wonder. Much less arm thy looks, the heaven of mildness, with disdain, displeased that I approach thee thus, and gaze insatiate, I thus single, nor have feared thy awful brow, more awful thus retired. Fairest resemblance of thy Maker, thee all things living gaze on, all things thine by gift, and thy celestial beauty adore, with ravishment beheld, their best beheld, were universally admired. But here, in this enclosure wild, these beasts among, beholders rude, and shallow to discern half what in thee is fair. One man except, who sees thee? And what is one? Who shouldst be seen, a goddess among gods, adored and served by angels numbers, thy daily train.
So glows the tempter and his proem tuned. Into the heart of Eve his words made way, though at the voice much marveled. At length, not unamazed, she thus in answer spake. What may this mean? Language of man pronounced, by tongue of good, and human sense expressed. The first at least of these I thought denied to beasts, whom God on their creation day created mute to all articulate sound. The latter I demur, for in their looks much reason, and in their actions oft appears. Thee, serpent, subtlest beast of all the field I knew, but not with human voice endued. Redouble then this miracle, and say, how camest thou speakable of mute, and how to me so friendly grown above the rest of brutal kind that daily are in sight? Say, for such wonder claims attention due.
Empress of this fair world, resplendent Eve, easy to me it is to tell thee all what thou commandst, and right thou shouldst be obeyed. I was, at first, as other beasts that graze the trodden herb, of abject thoughts and low, as was my food, nor aught but food discerned, or scent, and apprehended nothing now, till one day, roving the field, I chanced a goodly tree far distant to behold, loaden with food of fairest colours mixed, ruddy and gold. I nearer drew the gaze, when from the boughs a savoury odour blown, grateful to appetite, more pleased my sense than smell of sweetest fare, or the teats of ewe or goat dropping with milk of eve, unsucked of lamb or kid that tend their clothes. To satisfy the sharp desire I had of tasting those fair apples, I resolved not to defer. Hunger and thirst at once powerful persuades, quickened at the scent of that alluring fruit, urged me so keen. About the mossy trunk I wound me soon, for high from ground the branches would require thy utmost reach. Or Adam's, round the tree, all other beasts that saw, with like desire, longing, and envying stood, but could not reach. Amid the tree now God, where plenty hung, tempting so nigh, to pluck and eat my fill, I spared not. For such pleasure, till that hour, at feed or fountain, never had I found. Sated at length, ere long, I might perceive strange alteration, to degree of reason in my inward powers, and speech wanted not long, though to this shape retained. Thenceforth to speculations high or deep I turned my thoughts, and with capacious mind considered all things visible in heaven or earth or middle, all things fair and good. But all that fair and good in thy divine semblance and in thy beauty's heavenly realm, united I be, no fair to thy equivalent or same, which compelled me thus, though importuned, to come and gaze and worship thee of right declare, sovereign of creatures, universal Dame.
Serpent, thy overpraising leaves in doubt the virtue of that fruit in thee first grew. But say, where grows the tree? From hence how far? For many are the trees of God that grow in paradise, yet unknown to us, and various. In such abundance lies our choice, as leaves a greater store of fruit untouched, still hanging incorruptible, till men grow up to their provision, and more hands help to disburden nature of her burden.
Empress, the way is ready, and not long. Beyond a row of myrtles, on a flat, fast by a fountain, one small thicket past of blowing myrrh and balm. If thou accept my conduct, I can bring thee thither soon.
Be then, said he. He leading swiftly rolled in tangles, and made intricate seams straight, to mischief swift. Hope elevates, and joy brightens his crest, as when a wandering fire, compact of unctuous vapour, which the night condenses and the cold environs round, kindled through agitation to a flame, which oft they say some evil spirit attends, hovering and blazing with delusive light, misleads the amazed night wanderer from his way to bogs and mires, and oft through pond or pool they're swallowed up and lost from succour far.
So glistered the dire snake, and into fraud led Eve, our credulous mother, to the tree of prohibition, root of all our woe, which, when she saw, thus to her guide she spake.
Serpent, we might have spared our coming hither, fruitless to me though fruit be here to excess, the credit of whose virtue rest with thee, wondrous indeed if cause of such effects. But of this tree we may not taste nor touch. God so commanded, and left that command sole daughter of his voice. The rest we live law to ourselves. Our reason is our law.
Indeed? Hath God then said that of the fruit of all these garden trees ye shall not eat? Yet lords declared of all in earth or air.
Of the fruit of each tree in the garden he may eat, but of the fruit of this fair tree amidst the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat thereof, nor shall ye touch it, lest ye die.
She scarce had said, though brief, when now more bold the tempter, but with show of zeal and love to man, and indignation at his wrong, new part puts on, and as to passion moved, fluctuates, disturbed, yet comely, and in act raised, as of some great matter to begin. As when of old some orator renowned in Athens or free Rome, where eloquence flourished, since mute, to some great cause addressed, stood in himself collected, while each part, motion, each act won audience ere the tongue, sometimes in height began, as no delay of preface brooking through his zeal of right.
So standing, moving, or to height upgrown, the tempter, all impassioned, thus began.
O sacred, wise, and wisdom-giving plant, mother of science, now I feel thy power within me clear, not only to discern things in their causes, but to trace the ways of highest agents, deemed however wise. Queen of this universe, do not believe those rigid threats of death. Ye shall not die, how should ye? By the fruit, it gives you life to knowledge. By the threatener, look on me, who have touched and tasted, yet both live, and life more perfect have attained than fate meant me, by venturing higher than my lot. Shall that be shut to man, which to the beast is open? Or will God incense his ire for such a petty trespass, and not praise rather your dauntless virtue, whom the pain of death denounced, whatever thing death be, deterred not from achieving what might lead to happier life, knowledge of good and evil. Of good, how just! Of evil, if what is evil be good, why not know, since easier shunned? God therefore cannot hurt you, and be just. Not just, not God, not feared then, nor obeyed. Your fear itself of death removes the fear. Why then was this forbidden? Why but to awe? Why but to keep me low and ignorant, his worshipper? He knows that in the day ye eat thereof, your eyes that seem so clear, yet are but dim, shall perfectly be then opened and cleared, and ye shall be as gods, knowing both good and evil as they know. That ye should be as gods, since I as man, eternal man, is but proportion meet. I of brute human, ye of human. Gods. So ye shall die perhaps, by putting off human to put on gods, death to be wished, though threatened, which no worse than this can bring. And what are gods that men may not become as they, participate in godlike food? The gods are first, and that advantage use on our belief, that all from them proceeds. I question it. For this fair earth I see, warmed by the sun, producing every kind, them nothing. If they all things, who enclosed knowledge of good and evil in this tree, that whoso eats thereof forthwith attains wisdom without their will? And wherein lies the offence that man should thus attain to know? What can your knowledge hurt him, or this tree impart against his will, if all be his? Or is it envy? And can envy dwell in heavenly bliss? These and many more causes import your need of this fair goddess, human, which then
He ended, and his words replete with guile, into her heart too easy entrance won. Fixed on the fruit she gazed, which to behold might tempt alone, and in her ears the sound yet rung of his persuasive words, impregned with reason to her seeming, and with truth.
Meanwhile the hour of noon drew on, and waked an eager appetite, raised by the smell so savoury of that fruit, which with desire, inclinable now grown to touch or taste, solicited her longing eye. Yet first, pausing a while, thus to herself she mused.
Great are thy virtues, doubtless, best of fruits, though kept from man, and worthy to be admired, whose taste, too long forborne, at first to say gave elocution to the mute, and taught the tongue not made for speech to speak thy praise. Thy praise he also who forbids thy use, conceals not promise, naming thee the tree of knowledge, knowledge both of good and evil, forbids us then to taste. But his forbidding commends thee more, while it infers the good by thee communicated, and our want. For good unknown, sure, is not had, or had and yet unknown, is as not had at all. In plain then, what forbids he but to know? Forbids us good, forbids us to be wise. Such prohibitions bind not. But if death bind us without demands, what profits then our inward freedom? In the day we eat of this fair fruit, our doom is we shall die. How dies the serpent? He hath eaten and lives, and knows, and speaks, and reasons and discerns, irrational till then. For us alone was death invented, or to us denied this intellectual food, for beasts reserved. For beasts it seems, yet that one beast which first hath tasted envies not, but brings with joy the good befallen him, author unsuspect, friendly to man, far from deceit or guile. What fear I then? Rather, what no to fear under this ignorance of good and evil, of God or death, of law or penalty? Here grows the cure of all, this fruit divine, fair to the eye, inviting to the taste, of virtue to make wise, What hinders them to reach and feed at once both body and mind?
So saying, her rash hand in evil hour, forth reaching to the fruit, she cut, she moved. Earth felt the wound, and nature from her seat, sighing through all her works, gave signs of woe that all was lost. Back to the thicket slunk the guilty serpent, and well might, for Eve, intent now wholly on her taste, naught else regarded. Such delight till then as seemed in fruit she never tasted, whether true or fancied so, through expectation high of knowledge. Nor was Godhead from her thought. Greedily she engorged without restraint, and knew not eating death. Satiate at length, and heightened as with wine, jocund and boon, thus to herself she pleasingly began.
O sovereign, virtuous, precious of all trees in paradise, of operation blessed to sapience, hitherto obscure and famed, and thy fair fruit let hang, as to no end created. But henceforth my early care, not without song each morning, and due praise shall tend thee, and the fertile burden ease of thy full branches offered free to all, till dieted by thee I grew mature in knowledge, as the gods who all things know, though others envy what they cannot give. For had the gift been theirs, it had not here thus grown. Experience, next to thee I owe, best guide. Not following thee, I had remained in ignorance. Thou openst wisdom's way, and givest access, though secret she retire. And I perhaps am secret. Heaven is high, high and remote to see from thence distinct each thing on earth. And other care perhaps may have diverted from continual watch our great forbidder, safe with all his spies about him. But to Adam in what sort shall I appear? Shall I to him make known as yet my change, and give him to partake full happiness with me? Or rather, not, but keep the odds of knowledge in my power, without co-partner, so to add what wants in female sex, the more to draw his love, and render me more equal, and perhaps a thing not undesirable, sometimes superior. For inferior who is free? This may be well, but what if God have seen and death ensue? Then I shall be no more, and Adam, wedded to another Eve, shall live with her enjoying, I extinct. A death to think. Confirmed then I resolve, Adam shall share with me in bliss or woe. So dear I love him, that with him all deaths I could endure, without him live no life.
So saying, from the tree her steps she turned, but first low reverence done, as to the power that dwelt within, whose presence had infused into the plant sciential sap, derived from nectar, drink of gods. Adam, the while, waiting desirous her return, had wove of choicest flowers a garland to adorn her tresses, and her rural labours crown, as reapers oft are wont their harvest quill. Great joy he promised to his thoughts, and new solace in her return, so long delayed. Yet oft his heart divine something ill misgave him. He the faltering measure felt, and forth to meet her went, the way she took but more when first they parted. By the tree of knowledge he must pass. There he her met, scarce from the tree returning. In her hand a bough of fairest fruit, that downy smile, new gathered, and ambrosial smell diffused. To him she hasted, in her face excuse came prologue, and apology to prompt, which with bland words at will she thus addressed.
Hast thou not wondered, Adam, at my stay? Thee I have missed, and thought it long deprived thy presence. Agony of love till now not felt, nor shall be twice. For nevermore mean I to try what rash untried I sought, the pain of absence from thy sight. But strange hath been the cause, and wonderful to hear, this tree is not, as we are told, a tree of danger tasted, nor to evil unknown opening the way, but of divine effect, to open eyes and make them gods who taste. And hath been tasted such, the serpent wise, or not restrained as we, or not obeying, hath eaten of the fruit, and is become not dead as we are threatened, but thenceforth endued with human voice and human sense, reasoning to admiration. And with me persuasively hath so prevailed, that I have also tasted, and have also found the effects to correspond, opener mine eyes immersed, dilated spirits, and growing up to Godhead. Which for thee chiefly I sought, without thee can despise. For bliss, as thou hast part, to me is bliss, tedious unshared with thee, and odious soon. Thou therefore also taste, that equal lot may join us, equal joy as equal love, lest thou not tasting different degree disjoin us, and I then too late renounce deity for thee, when fate will not permit.
Thus Eve with countenance blithe her story told, but in her cheek distemper flushing glow. On the other side, Adam, soon as he heard the fatal trespass done by Eve, amazed, astonished stood as blank, while horror chill ran through his veins, and all his joints relaxed.
From his slack hand the garland wreath for Eve down dropped, and all the faded roses shed. Speechless he stood and paled, till thus at length, first to himself he inward silence broke.
Fairest of creation, last and best of all God's works, creature in whom excelled whatever can to sight or thought be formed, holy, divine, good, amiable, or sweet. How art thou lost? How on a sudden lost? Defaced, deflowered, and now to death devote. Rather, how hast thou yielded to transgress the strict forbiddance? How to violate the sacred fruit forbidden? Some cursed fraud of enemy hath beguiled thee, yet unknown, and me with thee hath ruined. For with thee, Sata, my resolution is to die. How can I live without thee? How forego thy sweet converse and love so dearly joined? To live again in these wild woods forlorn? Should God create another Eve, and I another river ford, yet loss of thee would never from my heart, no, I feel the link of nature draw. Flesh of flesh, bone of my bone, Lord, and from thy state mine never shall be part, bliss or woe.
So having said, as one from sad dismay recomforted, and after thoughts disturbed, submitting to what seemed remediless, thus in calm mood his words to Eve returned.
Bold deed thou hast presumed, adventurous Eve, and peril great provoked, who thus hast dared, had it been only coveting to eye that sacred fruit, sacred to abstinence, much more to taste it, under ban to touch. But past who can recall, or done undo? Not God omnipotent, nor fate. Yet so perhaps thou shalt not die. Perhaps the fact is not so heinous now. Foretasted fruit, profaned first by the serpent, by him first made common and unhallowed ere our taste, nor yet on him found deadly. He yet lives as thou saidst, and gains to live as man, higher degree of life, inducement strong to us, as likely tasting to attain proportional assent, which cannot be, but to be gods, or angels, demigods. Nor can I think that God, creator wise, though threatening, will in earnest so destroy us, his prime creatures, dignified so high, set over all his works, which in our fall, for us created, needs with us must fail, dependent made. So God shall uncreate, be frustrate, do, undo, and labour lose, not well conceived of God, who, though his power creation could repeat, yet would be loath us to abolish, lest the adversary triumph, and say, fickle their state whom God most favours, who can please him long? Me first he ruined, now mankind, whom will he next? Matter of scorn not to be given the foe. However, I with thee have fixed my lot, certain to undergo like doom. If death consort with thee, death is to me as life. So forcible within my heart, I feel the bond of nature draw me to my own in thee. For what thou art is mine. Our state cannot be severed. We are one flesh. To lose thee were to lose myself.
O glorious trial of exceeding love, illustrious evidence, example high, engaging me to emulate, but short of thy perfection, how shall I attain, Adam, from whose dear side I boast misprung? And gladly of our union hear thee speak, one heart, one soul in both, whereof good proof this day affords, declaring thee resolved, rather than death, or aught than death more dread, shall separate us, linked in love so dear, to undergo with me one guilt, one crime, if any be, of tasting this fair fruit, whose virtue for a good still good proceeds, direct or by occasion, hath presented this happy trial of thy love, which else so eminently never had been known. Were it, I thought, death menaced would ensue this my attempt, I would sustain alone the worst, and not persuade thee, rather die deserted than oblige thee with effect pernicious to thy peace. Chiefly assured, remarkably so late of thy so true, so faithful love unequalled. But I feel far otherwise the event, not death, but life augmented. Opened eyes, new hopes, new joys, taste so divine, that what of sweet before hath touched my lips, flat seems to this and harsh. On my experience, Adam, freely taste, and fear of death deliver to the winds.
So saying, she embraced him, and for joy tenderly wept, much won that he his love had so ennobled, as of choice to incur divine displeasure for her sake, or death. In recompense, for such compliance bad, such recompense best merits. From the bough she gave him of that fair enticing fruit with liberal hand. He scrupled not to eat against his better knowledge, not deceived, but fondly overcome with female charm. Earth trembled from her entrails as again in pangs, and nature gave a second groan. Sky lowered, and muttering thunder some sad drops wept at completing of the mortal sin original. While Adam took no thought, eating his fill, nor Eve to iterate her former trespass feared, the more to soothe him with her loved society. That now, as with new wine intoxicated both, they swim in mirth, and fancy that they feel divinity within them, breeding wings, wherewith to scorn the earth.
But that false fruit far other operation first displayed, carnal desire inflaming. He on Eve began to cast lascivious eyes, she him as wantonly repaid. In lust they burn, till Adam thus gan Eve to dalliance move.
Eve, now I see thou art exact of taste, and elegant, of sapience no small part, since to each reading savour we apply, and palate call judicious. I the praise yield thee, so well this day thou hast purveyed. Much pleasure we have lost, while we abstained from this delightful fruit, nor known till now true relish, tasting. If such pleasure be in things to us forbidden, it might be wished for this one tree had been forbidden 10. But come, so well refreshed, now let us play, as meet is after such delicious fare. For never did thy beauty, since the day I saw thee first and wedded thee, adorned with all perfections, so inflame my sense with ardour to enjoy thee. Fairer now than ever, bounty of this virtuous tree.
So said he, and forbore not glance or toy of amorous intent, well understood of Eve, whose eye darted contagious fire. Her hand he seized, and to a shady bank, thick overhead with verdant roof embowered, he led her, nothing loth. Flowers were the couch, pansies, and violets, and asphodel, and hyacinth, earth's freshest, softest land. There they their fill of love and love's disport took largely, of their mutual guilt the seal, the solace of their sin, till dewy sleep oppressed them, weary with their amorous play. Soon as the force of that fallacious fruit, that with exhilarating vapour bland about their spirits had played, and inmost powers made err, was now exhaled, and gross asleep, bred of unkindly fumes, with conscious dreams encumbered, now had left them, up they rose as from unrest, and each the other viewing, soon found their eyes how opened, and their minds how darkened. Innocence, that as a veil had shadowed them from knowing ill, was gone. Just confidence and native righteousness, and honor from about them. Naked left to guilty shame, he covered, but his robe uncovered more. So rose the day-night strong, Herculean Samson, from the harlot lap of Philistine Delilah, and waked, shorn of his strength. They destitute and bare of all their virtue. Silent, and in face confounded, long they sat, as struck and mute, till Adam, though not less than Eve abashed, at length gave utterance to these words constrained.
Oh, in evil hour thou didst give ear to that false worm, of whomsoever taught to counterfeit man's voice. True in our fall, false in our promised rising. Since our eyes opened we find indeed, and find we know both good and evil. Good lost, and evil got. Bad fruit of knowledge, if this be to know, which leaves us naked thus, of honour void, of innocence, of faith, of purity. Our wonted ornaments now soiled and stained, and in our faces evident the signs of foul concupiscence, whence evil store, even shame, the last of evils, of the first be sure. How shall I behold the face henceforth of God or angel, erst with joy and rapture so oft beheld? Those heavenly shapes will dazzle now this earthly with their blaze insufferably bright. Oh, might I here in solitude live savage in some glade obscured, where highest woods impenetrable to star or sunlight spread their umbrage broad and brown as evening. Cover me, ye pines, ye cedars, with innumerable boughs hide me, where I may never see them more. But let us now, as in bad plight, devise what best may for the present serve to hide the parts of each from other that seem most to shame obnoxious, and unseemliest seen. Some tree whose broad smooth leaves together sewed and girded on our loins may cover round those middle parts, that this newcomer, shame, there sit not and reproach us as unclean.
So counselled he, and both together went into the thickest wood. There soon they chose the fig tree, not that kind for fruit renowned, but such as at this day to Indians known, in Malabar or Deccan spreads her arms, branching so broad and long, that in the ground the bended twigs take root, and daughters grow about the mother tree, a pillared shade high overarched, with echoing walks between. Thereof the Indian herdsman, shunning heat, shelters in cool, and tends his pasturing herds at loopholes cut through thickest shade. Those leaves they gather, broad as Amazonian targe, and with what skill they had, together sewed to gird their waist, vain covering if to hide their guilt and dreaded shame. Oh, how unlike to that first naked glory. Such of late Columbus found the Americans so girt with feathered cincture, naked else and wild among the trees on isles and woody shores.
Thus fenced, and as they thought their shame in part covered, but not at rest or ease of mind, they sat them down to weep. Nor only tears rained at their eyes, but high winds worse within began to rise. High passions, anger, hate, mistrust, suspicion, discord, and shook sore their inward state of mind. Calm region once, and full of peace, now tossed and turbulent. For understanding ruled not, and the will heard not her law, both in subjection now to sensual appetite, who from beneath, usurping over sovereign reason, claimed superior sway.
From thus distempered breast, Adam, estranged in look and altered style, speech intermitted, thus to Eve renewed.
Would thou hadst hearkened to my words, and stayed with me as I besought thee, when that strange desire of wandering this unhappy morn, I know not whence possessed thee. We had then remained still happy, not as now, despoiled of all our good, shamed, naked, miserable. Let none henceforth seek needless cause to approve the faith they owe. When earnestly they seek such proof, conclude they then begin to fail.
What words have passed thy lips, Adam severe? Imputest thou that to my default, or will of wandering, as thou call'st it, which who knows but might as ill have happened thou being by, or to thyself perhaps? Hadst thou been there, or hear the attempt, thou couldst not have discerned fraud in the serpent, speaking as he spake. No ground of enmity between us known, why he should mean me ill or seek to harm. Was I to have never parted from thy side? As good have grown there still a lifeless rib. Being as I am, why didst not thou, the head, command me absolutely not to go, going into such danger as thou saidst? Too facile then. Thou didst not much gainsay, nay, didst permit, approve, and fair dismiss. Hadst thou been firm and fixed in thy dissent, neither had I transgressed, nor thou with me.
Is this the love? Is this the recompense of mine to thee, ingrateful Eve, expressed immutable, when thou wert lost, not I, who might have lived and enjoyed immortal bliss, yet willingly chose rather death with thee? And am I now upbraided as the cause of thy transgressing? Not enough severe, it seems, in thy restraint. What could I more? I warned thee, I admonished thee, foretold the danger and the lurking enemy that lay in wait. Beyond this had been force, and force upon free will had here no place. But confidence then bore thee on, secure either to meet no danger, or to find matter of glorious trial. And perhaps I also erred in overmuch admiring what seemed in thee so perfect, that I thought no evil durst attempt thee. But I rue that error now, which is become my crime, and thou the accuser. Thus it shall befall him who to worth in women over trusting lets her will rule. Restraint she will not brook, and left to herself, if evil thence ensue, she first his weak indulgence will accuse.
Thus they in mutual accusation spent the fruitless hours, though neither self-condemned, and of their vain contest appeared no end.
And so Adam and Eve have fallen. They have quarreled, but they forgive each other. And they pray to God for forgiveness for themselves. But God decides that he must banish them both from the Garden of Eden, and that they must lose paradise. God sends his angel Michael to reveal his judgment to them. And Michael also explains to Adam the future of mankind, and how that although they have lost paradise, eventually they will be restored to God's grace through God's Son, Jesus Christ. And to console Eve, God sends a dream in which he shows her that it will be through woman that man is eventually restored to paradise, through Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ. Now we would like to read the very last lines of Paradise Lost. And they begin with Michael addressing Adam.
So shall the world go on, to good malignant, to bad men benign, under her own weight groaning, till the day appear of respiration to the just, and vengeance to the wicked, at return of him so lately promised to thy aid, the woman seed. Obscurely then foretold, now amply known thy Saviour and thy Lord, last in the clouds from heaven to be revealed in glory of the Father, to dissolve Satan with his perverted world, then raise from the conflagrant mass, purged and refined, new heavens, new earth, ages of endless date, founded in righteousness and peace and love, to bring forth fruits, joy, and eternal bliss.
How soon hath thy prediction, seer blessed, measured this transient world, the race of time, till time stand fixed. Beyond is all abyss, eternity, whose end no eye can reach. Greatly instructed I shall hence depart, greatly in peace of thought, and have my fill of knowledge, what this vessel can contain, beyond which was my folly to aspire. Henceforth I learn that to obey is best, and love with fear the only God, to walk as in his presence, ever to observe his providence, and on him sole depend, merciful over all his works, with good still overcoming evil, and by small accomplishing great things, by things deemed weak, subverting worldly strong, and worldly wise by simply meek. That suffering for truth's sake is fortitude to highest victory, and to the faithful, death, the gate of life. Taught this by his example, whom I now acknowledge my Redeemer, ever blessed.
This having learnt, thou hast attained the sum of wisdom. Hope no higher, though all the stars thou knew'st by name, and all the ethereal powers, all secrets of the deep, all nature's works, all works of God in heaven, air, earth, or sea, and all the riches of this world enjoy'st, and all the rule one empire. Only add deeds to thy knowledge answerable, add faith, add virtue, patience, temperance, add love, by name to come called charity, the soul of all the rest. Then wilt thou not be loath to leave this paradise, but shalt possess a paradise within thee, happier far. Let us descend now, therefore, from this top of speculation, for the hour precise exacts our parting hence, and see the guards, by me encamped on yonder hill, expect their motion, at whose front a flaming sword in signal of remove waves fiercely round. We may no longer stay. Go, waken Eve. Her also I with gentle dreams have calmed, portending good, and all her spirits composed to meek submission. Thou at season fit, let her with thee partake what thou hast heard, chiefly what may concern her faith to know, the great deliverance by her seed to come, for by the woman's seed on all mankind, that he may live, which will be many days, both in one faith unanimous, though sad, with cause for evils past, yet much more cheered with meditation on the happy end.
He ended, and they both descend the hill. Descended, Adam to the bower where Eve lay sleeping ran before, but found her waked, and thus with words not sad she him received.
Whence thou returnest, and whither wentst, I know. For God is also in sleep, and dreams advise, which he hath sent propitious, some great good presaging. since with sorrow and heart's distress, wearied I fell asleep. But now lead on, in me is no delay, with thee to go is to stay here, without thee here to stay is to go hence unwilling. Thou to me art all things under heaven, all places thou, who for my wilful crime art banished hence. This further consolation, yet secure, I carry hence. Though all by me is lost, such favour I, unworthy, am vouchsafed. By me the promised seed shall all restore.
So spake our mother Eve, and Adam heard, well pleased, but answered not. For now too nigh the archangels stood, and from the other hill to their fixed station, all in bright array, the cherubim descended. On the ground, gliding meteors, as evening mist, risen from a river o'er the marish glides, and gathers ground fast at the labourer's heel, homeward return. High in front advanced, the brandished sword of God before them blazed, fierce as a comet, which with torrid heat and vapour as the Libyan air adust began to parch that temperate clime. Whereat, in either hand, the hastening angel caught our lingering parents, and to the eastern gate led them direct, and down the cliff as fast to the subjected plain. Then disappeared. They, looking back, all the eastern side beheld of paradise, so late their happy seat, waved over by that flaming brand, the gate with dreadful faces thronged, and fiery arms. Some natural tears they dropped, but wiped them soon. The world was all before them, where to choose their place of rest, and Providence their guide. They, hand in hand, with wandering steps and slow, through Eden took their solitary way. Oh, they are. Are they? What about that's the one they're doing. That's the one I left out. It's true. I used to
No, she didn't come last night.
Now let's all go. Are we, Stuart, are you coming with us to eat?
Yeah, where are you going?
Well, wherever you like.
The same place we went to yesterday.
Okay, alright.
Should we go in there and wait for you?
Yeah, I just want to get some things cleared up here, so I'm ready.
Okay, well, we'll see you there then.
Okay.
Where is that?
It's down by the church.
It's fine.
Oh,
Well,